Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us here on OHKO, a Pokemon VGC podcast. This is episode 44 of OHKO, and I'm your host, Joe Brown, usually joined by my co-host, Sierra Dawn, but Sierra is off living her best life on an adventure currently and unavailable. So we had to call in a good friend from the bullpen, ninth inning, last second, one Miss Gabby Snyder coming in to save the day. Gabby, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on OHKO today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. You know, y'all have been doing this for such a long time. I mean, I say this, it feels a lot longer than almost a year, like we were just talking about. It's really cool to be here. So thanks for having me, and congratulations on, as far as I'm concerned, hitting the milestone.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, we're very close. I'm sure maybe when we hit the 1 year anniversary, maybe we'll do something special for that. But that's too far away. For now, we got to focus on this week's episode with you, Gabby. And you know, we might have been doing OHKO for a year, but I've known you for way longer than that. We met flashback all the way to 2017, and you were already living it up. You were already kicking. I was just a little fish in the pond trying to make a name for myself, and here Miss Gabby Snyder flies in from Seattle to cast a New Jersey mid-season showdown. It was kind of a big deal when you and Daz showed up.
I mean, I remember that Jen, who was the tournament organizer for that MSS, asked us to come out, and I was always looking for an excuse to come visit people on the East Coast. Like, I think Chalky came down too, and it was just a good time. And that was the one that was in the big ballroom, right? At that Marriott hotel.
At the hotel,
yeah. I mean, for some of y'all who weren't there or maybe don't know what those large MSSs were like, that was basically like a regional. I mean, it didn't have the same points payouts, obviously, and it was a little bit smaller, especially compared to some of the numbers we hit nowadays. But that was like 100 plus people, New York, New Jersey area. So they were like the best players in the country. Like, it was honestly an amazing opportunity. And I was so glad I got to go there, meet some of the other Liberty Guardian casters from back in the day. It was a good time.
Yeah, honestly, people probably get tired of me mentioning how good New York, New Jersey's VGC region is. So thank you for mentioning it. We got our quota. had to mention it once per episode. No, but honestly, like there were well over 100 players at that midseason showdown, and at the time, would you say an average regional was maybe 300 to 350 players or something?
If we were lucky.
Right.
If
so
we were
that
lucky.
MSS it did feel like a regional. It had, you know, all the best players and way more rounds than a local tournament usually has. And I think one of the things that helped our players develop in that region and get better, but also me personally and the other commentators like Liberty Garden commentators and people practicing, you know, a couple times every month and seeing, it's like a broadcaster who, you know, does high school basketball and then they're broadcasting like March Madness, like the Final Four. You know what I mean? Like you're learning at such a high level. You're seeing the high level decisions that are being made by great players like Paul Chua and, you know, Justin Karras and you know, all these other world's qualified players that not only are they getting better because they're playing, but you're also getting better because you're commentating over better players.
Yeah, and honestly, the same goes for playing, right? Like, I know you and I weren't playing in that event, but I hear it from the locals in the Boston area all the time. You know, when you're playing against people who are world's qualifiers week to week to week, you know, you're challenging yourself to keep up with them, and, you know, you're going to get your butt kicked, obviously. And I think for commentary, that certainly happens on occasion too. But at the end of the day, it's a great opportunity to learn. And I think that if your goal is getting championship points, it might not be the most fun time for you at an event like that, but definitely a great opportunity for some high-level Pokemon. And it's great to see, especially now that we're, like a year and a half-ish post the COVID shutdown, that locals are really starting to hit their stride again and get those players and get those turnouts once more. Maybe not 100 people yet, but I know there was like a 50-person MSS here in Boston, and I want to say I saw 60 or 70 in New York City recently too. Like, it was pretty big.
Yeah, and I know it's not our game, but I saw the first League Cup for TCG last weekend. There was an 85-player I don't know, cup challenge, whatever the big one is, 85 players. I get tripped up. That's what we're bringing you on, because you're the professional, you're the expert.
Oh,
we have
geez.
we have a lot of topics to cover today, Gabby. We're going to talk about the local scenes and the changes, and your thoughts on all the changes year to year, because everyone wants to know what you're thinking. But we got a lot. We also have questions from our listeners. We have some Ask Gabby, Ask Bidoof questions. So we got a lot of topics to cover here on OHKO. So let's get started with those locals that you're talking about. You mentioned you're up in the Boston area. You are a tournament organizer. You, along with every other TO in all the games, got impacted by these changes to the new season and how tournaments are supposed to operate. So why don't you give a little background on how you used to run events and what your plans are for this upcoming 2025 season as a tournament organizer?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and actually start a year ago. So for those of you who don't know, I've only been a tournament organizer for like maybe 8-9 months at this point. So in order to become a TO, you have to take a online certification for the professor program, and you can only take one of those online certification quizzes once every couple months. So Chalky actually is a tournament organizer longer than I've been by that 2-month time frame, because he became a TO and I became a judge so we could run events sooner. And then I became a TO and he became a judge so we can kind of cover it the other way. So when we were starting that whole process, there was a announcement at the annual professor conference that they were considering moving to leagues for the VG in addition to Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go actually started out with this new system almost verbatim, but the video game was kind of grandfathered into how we used to run things, which was you could pick any venue you wanted. You just had to run 3 events without championship points, so without being sanctioned, to run PCs, and then you could run 3 PCs, and then you could run MSSs, and then that was basically it. So last year, we picked a venue that was coincidentally formerly a Pokemon League. It's a beautiful queer-friendly store out in Maynard, Massachusetts, named Excelsior Games. They have a bunch of like 3D printers and stuff too, which is really cool. I definitely nerd out whenever we're there running an event. And the venue was perfect. It's just big enough to have a stream, just big enough for 32 people, which is about what Chalky and I decided we could handle in terms of running an event at this point in our lives. And they allow dogs. So the Cheese League was born.
The Cheese League.
Yeah, he's our head judge. You know how it goes.
Oh, I love cheese.
So with the new changes, unfortunately, because our venue was a league but was not actively a league, we lost access to the video game tournaments. And that's just how it goes. It is what it is. I was pretty disappointed when it came through that way, but it's pretty clear this is what we're doing. So the owners of Excelsior Games have actually been helping us out, and they've been running weekly Pokemon leagues for the card game, for the video game. I don't think they've had any Pokemon Go trainers yet, but I'm trying to figure out how to get them like one of the league Pokestops, because that will also serve my purposes when we're there for an event. And they've done enough events now where I think starting next month, we can host a unsanctioned tournament for VG. And then I think by October, we'll be back running PCs again. So it is a little bit of a setback. And I do feel bad for our locals in the area, because we basically went from having multiple MSSs a quarter, multiple PCs a month. Like really, I think we were at 1 to 2 PCs per week at the end of last season, which was insane. To just having about 2 or 3 events a month with a larger driving radius. But we have actually seen some new stores pop up and show interest in running video game events in addition to the card game events they've already run. So if you're watching this when it first comes out, there's a event in Rhode Island at the end of July. Unfortunately, it's a Tuesday evening, so I personally cannot go because work is a thing in my life. But if you're in the area, they're a brand new store running VG events for the first time, and it'd be great to show them the support. And I think this is kind of the stance that the community's landed on at this point. It is unfortunate that things changed. But you know, all we can do is just continue to show support and just work with the new system and hope that whatever comes next is worth the change. Because I know there was like a post saying like once we consolidate all this, we'll be able to do some cool stuff. So stay tuned. So I'm just holding on for the best, really.
For our audio listeners, there was some air quotes around cool stuff. So yeah, don't want to leave our audio listeners out of.
Yeah, sorry. I tried to make the sarcasm like super apparent in my voice, but I'll lay it on thicker next time.
It's all good. Yeah, I think that's awesome that your store is working with you to kind of get sanctioned, or if that's a word,
Yeah.
reset up, because I know from other experience, other TOs have been having a lot of places like just don't want to put the effort in, and it's kind of frustrating, especially in my region, because we go to stores and we try to talk to them, and like it's a gold mine. As we said, we used to have 100 players come to MSSs. In Brooklyn, we used to have 70 players come for premier challenges. Like it's an absolute gold mine of a region that you can hold an event every month. Excuse me. And then like players, sure, you can give away a couple packs if you want, but really the main draw is the championship points, right? So maybe you just give out championship points and store credit, and then you can keep all the profit. Like it just seems like a lot of these places with this change that Pokemon made, a lot of these stores really don't understand the hidden giant or whatever that's right underneath them that they can really take advantage of.
Yeah, and admittedly, I'm not a business person, so I don't know how all the business aspects of this work, but I hope that if we get some good turnouts in our region, at least, for these first couple of events, people will see that. People will see that, hey, you can charge $10 entry, put $5 of that towards store credit for the winner or whatever, and just make it all work like that and see the profit potentials in it. I know that there were a couple places that, interestingly enough, turned down running VG in Boston because they're card stores and they actually just don't want to cater to video game people. They want that in-person interaction. They want no technology involved, I guess would be the best way to describe it. So there still is some work to be done, I think, but again, I'm just trying to stay hopeful. Lord knows the VGC community has had worse setbacks than this in the grand scheme of things.
I imagine Gabby going to a store and they're like, "Nah, we do things the old-fashioned way. No fancy damn video game technology." And then you see the players, they're all playing the card game, and then they're like churning butter on the side.
Oh my god, I would actually buy that.
Try to hold a key with a kite to try to get electricity. So it's just old fashioned, no video game stuff. But I think it's probably better from Pokemon's perspective that things are uniform, right? I think that's why we might be frustrated. It might have came out of nowhere for us on our end, but I'm sure this is a long conversation that they've been kind of going over for a while, their esports team, and on their end, even if they lose a couple stores in the upfront, well, they'll get stuff back over time, they believe, hopefully, fingers crossed. And now all the games are under the same uniform system, which helps them on their end.
Yeah, and I also will say that when we first got this news, one of the things that we actually spoke to Excelsior about was hey, this is the requirement, this is why we're talking to you guys. And they brought up a really interesting point that I want to talk about here as well. So one of the requirements to be a Pokemon League is that you sell Pokemon product, and the requirements to sell Pokemon product are actually really strict. There's background checks involved, the signage and the venue has to meet certain codes and everything. And while I know that VGC has had some, I'm going to use the word endearing locations for our events in the past.
That's a good word for it.
Shout outs to the Couch Graveyard.
Some eclectic locations.
Yeah, the Couch Graveyard was definitely eclectic. I do think that there's a safety aspect to this as well, especially when there's kids potentially involved. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a business person. I can just see why they would want to have a bit more control over those kind of things. Yeah,
definitely. I understand on their perspective. I mean, goes down the whole rabbit hole of how much of this game is actually played by kids compared to adults, and we kind of always go down that wheel of Pokemon not knowing their competitive audience or whatever. But that's a conversation for another day.
It is, and I think that if you want to take a different perspective on it as well, there's also like the new circuit rules, right, with the new requirements and everything. Supposedly there's going to be more global challenges, like maybe locals at the end of the day won't be as relevant as they were last year. Like maybe if you can't max out your locals, like maybe there's other alternatives for you to get the championship points. You need to be in that top 75. Like we only have a small piece of the picture, and while I think a lot of people, that makes it easy for them to see the glass half empty, I'm trying really hard to see it half full and just hoping it works out.
Well, that was the next thing I was going to ask about, the changes to the format for the World Championships. Sierra and I had a very long conversation last week about this subject. People are passionate online. Say in the comments, the replies to the conversation, people very poignant positions, which is totally respect everybody's thoughts, pros and cons on the new changes. So I guess, I wanted to get your thoughts on it, because you were a player that qualified under a previous top X amount of players get a world championship. So now here we are. Next year it's top 75. You probably estimate it probably gets up to like 90 if you're going to count, because you have the auto invites from regional champions and auto invites from top 4 at ICs. So what are your thoughts on this new system?
Yeah, so I'm glad that you used this as the segue, because when I got so I ended up number 34 out of 40 when it came to Worlds qualification in 2015. I didn't max out my locals, and that's something that I think catches people by surprise. I physically could not max out my locals because in the Seattle area where I lived at the time, we only had locals at this card shop in Tacoma, Washington, which is about a 45-minute drive on a good day from Seattle, about 2 hours in rush hour traffic. And they were always Thursday evenings. So I literally had to like leave work at 2 p.m., go get a rental car or a zip car, and then drive that to Tacoma if I wanted to play in an event. And that just was like not possible with my work schedule at that point in time. So while I know people are thinking that this is going to be a lot more cutthroat, and it is, I want to believe that you're not going to have to get first places in all your locals. You're not going to have to top cut every single regional you went to. You really just need to have, like, I would say 3 or 4 really strong performances, and then just clear the averages on everything else. There were less people competing back then, so it's hard for me to make like a apples to apples comparison on everything. But like, to give you an idea of what my season was like that year, I think I had like top 8 in all my local BFLs, and then a couple of top 4s, and I won 1. Like, it was abysmal compared to some of the local heroes you see today who just have 1s all the way down the table. But to make up for that, I top cut 3 regionals, 2 top 8s, 1 top 4, top 128 at 2 ICs, and that was how I got my invite. And I know the 2 ICs is a bit controversial. At the time, I felt like I had to, because I didn't have the opportunity to play in more locals. And it was honestly easier for me to just say, let's go to London and play in a Pokemon event for a week.
Yeah, for newer people who weren't playing at the time, Gabby, the ICs, the old national tournament system. Basically, we didn't just have 3 or 4 events throughout the year. A like large chunk of countries had one national tournament, so you could play. If you were a British player, you could play at UK Nats and then French Nats, which is what our friend Daz got second at French Nationals to qualify for Worlds. Then go play in German Nats, and then go play in South Africa National Championships, and like all. So it's a whole different world. So continue. I just want to let our newer listeners know it's not the same IC system we have now.
Yeah, but the points payouts, I would argue, were just as good relative to the other payouts. And I remember talking it over with Chalky, and I basically was in a position. So when we decided to book the trip, I was basically in the ballpark of like, hey, I could qualify for Worlds. My options for getting there would be a couple good regional performances, a very good IC performance, or I do meh on both of those and I max out my locals. And like we were looking at our schedules, we were trying to figure out like, okay, what can we do? And the way everything lined up, there was Seattle regionals was one weekend, Kansas City regionals was the next weekend, and then the following weekend was the UK national championships in Manchester. So I was like, you know what? Let's just do this 1, 2, 3. I'll have a good heads up if I need to go grind out locals after this. We'll see how it goes. And it worked out very well because I top cut Seattle. I got top 4 in Kansas, and then I basically got points at the UK nationals, which I've never actually had like a standout IC/nationals performance. So that's definitely something I'd like to try and do someday, just to say I could do it. But like, I got my invite to a point where I just had to get points at NAIC and then I would be fine. And for me, mentally, that was about all I could handle that season. And, it just worked out. I was very fortunate that I could afford to take this trip. Not gonna lie, we definitely slept on somebody's floor in London for a week because we could not afford it otherwise. But it was a lot of fun, made some great friends. And honestly, like, I wouldn't trade it. So I know that the wallet warrior aspect of the new qualification system is definitely one of the things being scrutinized. And I agree with it 100%. Like, I don't think it was necessarily fair that I could afford to do this and somebody else couldn't. And I will fully admit that is my privilege of being a software engineer person and being able to make all that work. But at the same time, like, I think that national championships are so difficult that if you feel like you need to try multiple times, don't let the fact that people are saying you're a wallet warrior, you're blah, 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 don't let that stop you. Because one, you're going to have a fantastic time, especially now the ICs are like the highlights of the season. They honestly feel as spectacular as Worlds did back in the day.
Yeah.
And two, if people start doing this enough, I really think that's how you make the case for a BFL of 1 in terms of ICs. Like, you can see it this year, right? Like, they set a championship point bar very high. Too many people cleared it. And they're like, okay, we're not going to try that anymore. So, yeah, that's just my 2 cents, I guess.
No, for sure.
Was there anything in particular about 2015 you were curious about?
Well, no, I have more questions on 2015, but first,
Okay.
like, responding to your points on like the Wild Warrior and blah, 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 like, you still have the pride, right, of qualifying and being one of the quote unquote best top 40 players in North America. And it's not like you said, you didn't even max out your local events. Not that you needed to add that qualifier because you still deserved it by getting top 40, but 3 top 8s at a regional, is a very strong performance, especially back then. We had less events. Regionals were out on the same weekends, so it's not like the player size was bigger. So some of the times it was a little more cutthroat in those later rounds, the player quality. Back then were the jokes about people using their in-game teams. Nobody really uses in-game teams anymore at regionals. But like, I think one of the things that a lot of people are struggling with is something you also started with, is like that self-pride or that self-drive, that determination. Like, yes, I think, to me, my thought is like, you should be as proud of you getting 34th out of 40 in 2015, and you're proud of that regardless of if you flew to 2 national events. Somebody who got 500 CP this year and maxed out their CP and got 128 at 8 different regionals, like, sure, others can judge you, but you can still be proud internally that you accomplished your goal. You know what I mean? I think that's where we're having a divide in this conversation, is nobody's taking it away from you. Everyone who earned a world's invite earned a world's invite. You just have to have some of that own self-pride or self-appreciation. I think some people are losing that.
Yeah, and this mindset has always been present in Pokemon. Like, I don't understand why part of the community feels like they always need to have like a gotcha or like a one-up or whatever on other people. But like, I remember when I qualified for Worlds, people were telling me, well, it's only day 1 of Worlds. Doesn't really count.
Exactly. Yes.
And I was like,
They just move the needle every year.
I almost killed myself trying to get this done emotionally, thankfully not physically. So, yeah, but along those lines as well, though, like you're absolutely right. Nobody can take away the accomplishment from you. And while I do think that it's a little bit sad, it's bittersweet that they're changing it from CP bar to top X. Um, because I do think that it will, it is going to make it more challenging. We are only going to see like maybe a couple hundred people play in Worlds overall moving forwards. But at the same time, it does mean that if you do get that, you're going to earn that. No one can take that away from you. And if you're somebody who is really close this year and is looking for, motivation to keep playing at this point, because I know a lot of our locals were struggling with that. I really think it's as simple as just shooting your shot. Like when I started out 2015, all my regional trips were because I wanted to go see Chalky. This was just how we saw each other back then. We were in a long distance relationship. We would go to Pokemon events together, see our friends, see each other, play this game we love, and then, I don't know, go back to our real lives or whatever. And at the beginning of the year, I didn't see Worlds as a possibility. When I got that first top cut, I was like, yo, this is amazing. I forget what Skydrop does, and if Hariyama is too heavy to be picked up by it, spoiler alert, it is. But dude, I'm like living right now. And the way that my season played out, it was very much like this actually might be possible. Let me sit down and do the math and figure out how to make it possible, rather than going into it from the get-go of like, I have this plan. I need to get this points from here, these points from here. It's definitely a perspective change, but I hope that this means more people can kind of look at it from that way and maybe not put so much pressure on themselves to perform. And then if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Like the one last thing I'll say as well, and this is something that, you and I have seen at tons of events, regionals, ICs, worlds, whatever, like just because you're the better player on paper doesn't mean that it's going to be your day. Like you could just roll up and just hit rock slide flinches all morning, and then that's it. Your tournament's over. And I think for that reason, in a game like Pokemon, the only thing you can ever do is try. And I think that if you're putting too much pressure on yourselves to like perform and get results and get points and qualify for Worlds, you may get there. You may have the best season of your life, but you're going to burn out pretty hard. And that's what happened to me too. So I just want to see people approach like this new bar with like a healthier mindset, or this new qualification system with a healthy mindset. Put yourself first, and hopefully whatever bar rewards that they're coming up with, again, glass half full thinking here, will be worth it for those players to, push themselves, make their goals, and maybe find Worlds Invite along the way.
Yeah, for sure. And, my last thought, because we talked about it forever last week, but the people that were like replying, like, oh, you're downplaying the significance of the change to Worlds because it's the CP is the only thing we play for, so therefore it's you're changing the reason to play. Because I was saying that like you can still go to play Pokemon. Is like, I know it's a novel concept. You can go to a Pokemon tournament to go play Pokemon, right? And got people are like, oh, but we go to play, we get CP and earn a Worlds invite. So if it's now harder to earn a Worlds invite, now there's less reason to play. However, CP is not the only thing you get at a regional or an IC1. Your friends and playing the experience, but also there's also a buttload of money compared to back when you and I were playing this game in the prizing. We used to get a 3DS for winning a tournament on our 3DSs, right? That was yes. What it was. Now you can get $15,000 for winning an IC, right? So there are other things, but I don't want to rehash the. Yeah, go ahead.
I will say one thing though. You want to know how much money I won the year I qualified for Worlds?
How much?
I only won a travel award to the U.S. Nationals that year. So with my flight and hotel, I only made $1,100. So
you did it for the love of the game,
dude. If the money was the payouts the way they are now, I would have walked away with way more money.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
So I appreciate that perspective as well. Like, I hope to see people just shoot their shot and try at regionals and have a good time, and maybe don't feel like you have to go to every single one this year.
Yeah. Now let's continue on in
Yes.
the year of our Lord 2015. We're still here. I
Okay.
was doing research. I was,
Oh no.
I was making no, this is a while ago. We talked about it actually in LA, that I was doing research on old eras of VGC, and what was popular in certain formats, and how certain players won which events with which teams, yada yada. And the 2015 year, when I was doing research for videos, and I'm like, okay, looking at, all right, Riley won this event and Wolf won this event, and blah blah blah. I'm like, oh, Gabby Snyder got top 8 at this event. Oh, that's cool. She's got this cool polytoad. It's like, that's my friend. My friend made top 8. Okay, then I'll continue on this season. Like, Gabby Snyder, top 8 again. Polytoad, Kingdra, Metagross. Okay, so what's funny to me is that since your success happened in not the Dark Ages, because Dark Ages was like Gen 4, but not the current golden age of the internet that we have now for VGC. Like, if you had that 2015 season in 2023, you'd be the Kingdra lady. Your profile would be like you and Kingdra as your icon. People would be making fan art of it because you top cut three events. Like, you're the Reign Queen. But back then that was just a team that you were using to get all those top cuts.
Yeah, it honestly, weather really works well with my brain, even now in the format. I would argue that Trick Room speed control is better than weather right now, which is why I think my brain has just gone to Calyrex Ice and never come back, quite frankly. But yeah, Politoed back then was a very bulky support Pokemon. It would set Drizzle for Kingdra so it could go fast with Swift Swim. Muddy Water was a fantastic move when it hit. And when it got the accuracy drops, it was even better. But like, even without that, my whole strategy was basically like, start things off pretty fast, pretty aggressively with Politoed Kingdra. Mega Metagross had some really cool speed tiers that you could hit, before and after you Mega Evolved it. So like the one that I ran at Worlds that year, I remember when I Mega Evolved, it was 1 speed point faster than the average Thundurus being run, and it had Ice Punch for a guaranteed 1 hit. Like, there was just so many options that you could play with those Pokemon, and I think kind of like how Indeedee Armarouge gets kind of swept to the side as like, oh, that's just the size spam team, whatever. I think Reign had that perspective back then too. I wish I ran it at Worlds. I actually didn't. I made the call to try and actually build a team. You can sort of see it back here. I have my competitor mat, and then I have the sitting cutie of all my Worlds teams. So
who's that? Is that Regirock? Oh, no, it's Conkeldurr. Okay,
no.
I was going to say, who's that third plush?
Entei, Milotic, Metagross, Conkeldurr, and then 2 genies.
Well, I mean, you have to have the.
You have to have 2 genies in 2015.
Okay, let's talk about this, Gabby, because people who didn't play back then say, "Oh, chalk wasn't that big a deal," and then like,
oh my God.
I make a championship history video about chalk, right? About the Machampion beating the chalk teams, and then Jake makes this video about how prevalent chalk was in 2015, and people still try to have this opposite man opinion that chalk really wasn't that big of a deal. So, as someone who qualified for the World Championships that year and had to play a gazillion matchups against chalk, could you please set the record straight for these youngins that are just trying to be opposite man on the internet?
It came out of nowhere, like, legitimately. And I think one thing that Japan does better than any other nation going into the World Championships is that they work together, they find a team that breaks open the metagame, and then they all run it because it's the
Yes.
fundamentally the best team. And they had done that a little bit in the past, for other formats previous, but the chalk team was the first time that they really had lightning strike, and like, it struck. Kangaskhan, Mega Kangaskhan was known to be like probably one of the best megas on paper, but like, people were still playing with like Charizard and other weird things because it just wasn't mathematically, like the one. Kind of like you look at the Urshifus now, or you look at Calyrex Ice or Shadow. And the way the team just functioned in that metagame, you had a great form of speed control. If your opponent had Trick Room, you had a Moongus. Like, it just had outs for everything. And I think that when you are a modern person looking back on 2015, considering the internet, considering how quickly information travels, I think it's very hard to picture like a team coming out of nowhere, having 20 people run it in a tournament, and then have it take, what was it, 5 out of the top 8 spots or 6?
So I think it was 6 chalk teams, but 7 Japanese players.
Yeah.
In top 8.
Yeah, like that was just unheard of back then. Like even as somebody who's spent a lot of time on online ladders and like practicing that way and not necessarily just trying to, play battle spot till the end of the day. It was unheard of.
Yeah, and if people talk about worlds, oh, that's just the top 8. Look, expand down to the top 32 or about. It's like, but we gauge the winners, right? History is written by the winners, not the people that finished top 32. So we're seeing how dominant was there, and it's not just a one event thing. Like they act like, oh, it was just worlds and then we moved on. Like no, it's a year-long circuit. The post Worlds 2015 metagame is to this day one of the most toxic, infuriating metagames I've ever experienced in my life. I'm playing in Brooklyn. There's literally, I think, 16 worlds qualified players at my locals, maybe 14 if I'm over exaggerating a little bit. And we're having 6 to 7 rounds of Swiss at every PC, and at least 5 of those 6 rounds were chalk mirrors. Like it was. Yep. It was everywhere. People just try to downplay our history. Like they act like what we went through didn't happen. I know our parents said they walked uphill to school, 5 miles both ways and in the snow with no shoes on or whatever. But like, no, we really did go through that.
Yeah, and the other thing you have to keep in mind too is that, again, that team had something for everything. It was like the perfect balanced team. And I think one of the reasons why we don't see a team like this nowadays is because the game is much more balanced, which is weird to think about. But, parental bond, you do 100% plus 25% of your damage. That was enough to make it so you were like guaranteed knockouts, basically. I'm sure somebody could do like a better comparison than I'm doing right now on the fly. But remember towards the end of Regulation F, there was that one Firewater Grass team that just
Firewater Grass Bolt, which was 40% of the meta. Yeah.
Yep. That's the closest we've gotten, I think, to having a team like Chalk in the modern era, because it was perfectly balanced. It had answers for everything. And it really just came down to how you played it versus, what team you got matched up against on the table.
You could probably say the Big Six team too in 2016, because that was back-to-back years, and people lose the history when you're just looking back on over the prominent teams, and they don't take history in context, right? So it was back-to-back years of chalk dominance and Zerndon / Big Six dominance. And then what we saw at the end of the 2016 season and the 2017 regionals was 35 player regionals and 45 player regionals, because people did not want to deal with Dark Void Smeargle and Xerneas Groudon teams for 9 rounds of a tournament.
Yeah, and I will say as well, I need to do this, like the math, but the last regional that I played in, I'm pretty sure was Anaheim 2016. And I ran Zerndon. I'm pretty sure I literally like net decked the team.
Admitting that on the internet that you ran Zerndon. You're brave.
I'm making a point, because like this was the first tournament I played in after I burnt out and just was like super done with Pokemon with. I had barely practiced for that event. Okay, I can't log in fast enough to get this information on my account, but I'm fairly certain I top 32 that event. Like,
and you just picked up the team?
I literally just picked up the team that week. Like, that was just how broken this team was. And again, with Regulation F, towards the end of it, we just saw so many people just say, screw it, I'm going to run the team. And then they did well with it, because that's just how good the team was.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't want to dwell too much on the past, because we can focus on the now, Gabby. We can appreciate the glory days of Pokemon that we get to experience. And in last month you got to go to New Orleans, right? You were able to be one of the casters for NAIC. So had you ever been to New Orleans before? Was that first time? How was the NAIC, experience as a whole? Did you like it? Because it looks like we're going back to New Orleans next year, so you don't have a choice. Give me all the details.
Yeah, so I liked it, first of all. I had never been to New Orleans before. I have a friend, Shiloh. She used to be Team Magma, talking about old back in the day stuff. But for years she was always like, "Oh, you have to go. Like, this is my favorite place in the world. Like, it's so cool, the music and everything." And I was like, "Yeah, okay. I'll get there eventually." And then when I found out that NAIC was going to be there, I was like, "Well, shoot, I guess I am going to go." And it was a lot of fun. I admittedly did not get as much time to explore as I would have liked. I am in a PTO crisis right now because I'm getting married this year, so time off is a luxury that I do not have. um, but the best part about it, I think, was that I felt like I still got to see the city, despite the fact that, I flew in the day before we had rehearsals and then flew out the Monday after. But it was a very good time. The food was amazing. I think my favorite part of the event, other than casting the finals, because that was my first time doing a Masters finals in VG. Evan and I just had, I don't know what happened, but we were just on our game. The
You had
game
the
was
same brain
amazing.
cell. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so thankful for that. But the other favorite part was the opening with the band and getting to like walk in and dance with them. Like, that was so much fun. It's
Was it actually Spraggles and Doofsnacks on the things, or were they just dudes that looked like them?
it was actually them. Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay. I've heard conflicting remarks.
wait,
People
wait,
saying
wait.
no, that's not them.
Were you mean like dressed up in a costume or just marching?
No, I think they were like on like stilts and they had like a
Okay,
top hat.
no, they
That
weren't
wasn't
on
them.
stilts. But
I thought it was them.
they were, so all the casters who weren't doing the opening of the show basically were asked to go join, and I was like, heck yeah. Like,
Yeah.
you couldn't tell me no, honestly. And it was such a cool way to highlight like the local culture of New Orleans. And I know that like last year at Worlds we had the like taiko drum opening ceremony. Years
Yes.
ago at LAIC they had like a local band come in and play some like Brazilian music, which was really cool. Like, I hope we continue to do stuff like that, because it just really makes it more like a celebration than just like, hey, you're here to play in a tournament and have like, a grueling 12-hour day. Have fun.
Yeah. Now let's talk about that finals, because I was actually going to bring that up before you brought up
Mhm.
that you had the chance to cast the finals. Patrick Connors takes over the world. He
Oh my
saves
God.
America from the EU sweep. He's Florida man saves the day. And in that match, obviously we have the drama of his family's in the audience and he doesn't know about it. Were you aware of that on production the whole time? And how'd you keep a sane face and not tell anybody, not spill the beans? And then two, what was that feeling like in the venue in game 3 when the Pelipper swapped in and the entire arena, like 5,000 people, went crazy because they knew it was checkmate? So like, what was that wide guard heard around the world? Like, everyone knew that Patrick was going to win the IC. What was that feeling like?
So I will start with the question about his family being there. So we knew, but it was only because TJ, who he
Yep.
was working on the stream team that weekend, and he actually was the person who helped coordinate it with his parents. So he came backstage, and I think it was like me, Evan, and Anna Prosser, the host, just kind of hanging around. He's like, I need to tell you this, but you can't tell a soul. And I was like,
TJ.
yeah. And I was like, are you just being dramatic? And then he's like, no, like his parents are here. They drove all night. He doesn't know. We're keeping them a secret from him. Like, the whole Florida community's in on it, something like that. And Anna and I just looked at each other and like we were tearing up. We were like, oh my God. Because like it was very clear to us that his family like really supported him, and like he even mentioned that to us when Evan and I were talking to him alone before the match, because we were trying to get like story points and everything from both him and Aurelian. And it like, to just see the pieces come together was amazing. It was actually easy for me to not mention it because I was so preoccupied with the matchup and like the
Yeah.
Pokemon and everything. I was really worried that like my analysis was going to miss a beat or something, because they're both insanely intelligent individuals, and both of them said in the interviews that we had with them prior to the finals that they would not be playing the matchup. They would be playing the person sitting across from them.
Oh.
And we kind of use that as the fundamental of, okay, this is the story we want to tell. You know, we have the new trainer, we have the accomplished trainer, we have two teams that on paper you think you know what they do, but they're going to be trying to think outside the box. You know, they both mentioned verbatim that they're playing the other person more. Like, this is going to be really hype. So that was the mindset I had going into that game 3. I was like, okay, you know, we've seen how these first 2 games play out. What's in the back? What's in the back? And then we saw the Terrapagos terrestrialize, and then we saw the party in the back with the Pelipper. And that was the moment it clicked for me. And I was like, oh no, he did it. And then I think he revealed it, and the crowd kind of got like a little bit crazy, but then it was the actual wide guard lock-in that they just went nuts for. And I just remember feeling that energy. Like, I don't think I actually heard it and processed it because I was too busy like freaking out myself and trying to explain, like, no, this is why this is insane, guys. But it was just one of those really cool moments to be a part of. And it reminded me of how the crowd reacted when Sejun Park had his Pachirisu go for the follow me. And like, that was the game winning play there. Like, it just felt like everybody was in on it. Everybody realized it at the same moment, and it was just a collective like freak out. It was so cool, and I'm so lucky to have been a part of it.
Yeah, it was an awesome time. You know, it felt like an instant classic, right? Sometimes you watch a traditional sports game, and at the end of it, you know, all right, people are going to talk about this game for the next 20 years about how big it was. So like, everyone's going to talk about Patrick and his Pelipper. I assume we're going to get that Pelipper at Worlds, you know, because like, we always get one Pokemon from the previous IC. I think that Pelipper's coming home.
If it's not, then I seriously have a question with Mr. Pikachu. Like, it better be your Shifu at that point, or the Calyrex
like,
itself.
What game did you watch, Pikachu? But so you talk about that moment and all the emotions running high. You know, the family are there. Let's talk about your career as a whole as a caster. You've been casting for a very long time. I think made your official debut back in 2016, right?
Yep.
So you got almost a decade of experience of, you know, all these hype moments. If you have a specific favorite match you've ever done, what would that be? And then what are some other highlights you look back on, you know, fondly from your commentary career?
Yeah, so definitely the Patrick versus Aurelian finals is up there, top 3, 100%. Again, I'm just so lucky and honored that I got to cast that event. Beyond that, there was a top 4 match at the Anaheim World Championships back in 2017. There is also the video on it, I'm sure, as you're aware. I forget the name of the trainers.
Celestila's Last Chance.
Yeah. I should have watched that before we did this podcast because my brain's fuzzy. But from my perspective, you know, we have this game go to time plus 3 turns. Dawes and I are literally standing up out of our seats, like yelling at the caster desk because it's so exciting. And then immediately after we're done, it's like 11 o'clock at night. We're still riding that high. Him, me, and Anna go to Disneyland and ride Space Mountain. Just perfect
awesome.
day. Like, legitimately, it was just a perfect combination of really good Pokemon, really exciting atmosphere, and then just ending the day doing something I loved with friends who are really important to me. That just made my life so incredible. The other one that I'll mention that stands out to me as a treasured memory, honestly, is all the stuff I did with the Go casters last year. Like, I know I took a little bit of a hiatus from VG to help the Go casters get up to speed and make sure that, you know, they knew what they were doing, because it's kind of a tough transition, right? To go from talking on Twitch or your podcast or whatever to like talking to millions of people about Pokemon. But I feel like I made some friends for life in that casting crew. And before we started Worlds that year, so it was Speedy, Butters, and Caleb were the other Worlds casters. and they bought a Bidoof sitting cutie from the Pokemon Center, and they all signed it, and they wrote 2022 on it, and they gave it to me for my birthday, and they were just like, thank you for all you've done for us this year, and it was just the sweetest thing in the world. I cried like a baby, and I just feel very, very blessed to have moments like that I can look back on and just be like, pretty cool.
Yeah,
pretty
I
cool.
love the Go team. Like we have, I love all of our teams across all our different regions and games and stuff. You know, some of my favorite people on the team are TCG casters or Go casters, and like the ability for us to all cross over and you don't just stay in your clique, right? Like
Yeah.
I remember when we were in Brazil, Caleb and I went out to lunch at this restaurant, and we just like hung out for like 3 hours. It was just us. Like we didn't have like, oh, let me see what the VG people are up to. Or he wasn't like, oh, I gotta go catch up with the Go. Like we were crossing over, talking about our games, you know, talking about life and stuff, and we became friends for life at that point. So my only complaint with the Go team, they're too tall and they're too handsome. All of those gentlemen are very tall and very handsome. So it's like you see them all walking in, and it's like, is this a Pokemon match or like a GQ photo shoot? You know what I mean?
Heaven forbid they start getting fashion tips from the Unite crew. At that point, it's all over for all of us.
Oh, then it's all over for us. But on the Celsius Last Chance, I remember I was watching it live. I was working at MLB. I was coming home from my shift, and I was I took NJ Transit from Penn Station down, right? And in the first game, whenever you go through Penn Station, like you lose kind of internet for like 2 minutes, you know,
Yeah.
you're all like in the dead underground or whatever. So I'm like watching it super intently. This is top 4. Oh my God, there's 2 stream matches going on at the same time. Like everyone's freaking out. And then I'm like, no, I'm losing the internet. What's going to happen? And then I get it back for game 2. And then watch it end. And that's still, you know, I'm not going to go off because I've fought people tooth and nail. I will fight to the death that is still very worthy of the championship history video, and I've fought many people on that conversation, so I don't want to rehash that part. But talking with you, talking with Daz, talking with people that were there to experience that moment, like that's still one of the best. I think you and Daz, it's the best match you guys did together as a duo, and you guys did a million matches together. But like watching it, it felt like the Patrick match. It felt like history was happening right in front of my eyes as I was on the train.
Yeah, no, 100% agreed. Like, it was just one of those things where, like, it was just a very good game of Pokemon, and it came down to the absolute wire, and I think that's all you can really hope for in Pokemon, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Now, the other match I thought you might bring up was actually the inaugural Pokemon Championship history video, and that's the Dragonite comeback. So,
oh my God.
Give us your insight. It's you, it's Ray Rizzo. The game is over. Gio is about to lose, and then insanity erupts on the stage, and the most impossible comeback of all time occurs, and you're there on the mic. So give us, you know, the insight in your head as what was going on during the Dragonite comeback.
So I will be fully self-critical here. It was way before I learned how to convey excitement in my voice. Like, I can look back and watch that clip and know that I was losing my mind. But if I listen to it as somebody who's just listening to it, sometimes I feel like, oh, Gabby, you really should have amped it up a couple decimals there. But I think part of the reason why was Ray Rizzo is very, very analytical. And one of the things I noticed when casting with him is once he makes a call, that's it.
That's the call.
You can't convince him otherwise. So a lot of that match was like him being like, it's over. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, you're trying to be nice, right?
Yeah, like, can we not call this like 5 minutes before this is done so we at least have something to talk about? Thank you very much. And then to my surprise, it just actually kept going. And like the win con started to define itself. And Ray was kind of speechless, which I think is like the best thing that shows he was genuinely surprised too, right? Like it was one of those situations where, like you said, history was being made, but unlike some of the other ones, like it just caught us off guard because it was like the sleep turns came into play, and then it was just such a long shot from the get-go. Like, you always respect your opponent for making those kind of plays, because if it works out the 2% of the time it does, like, you know, congratulations, you recognized it, but you never expect to actually see the 2% play out. And that's exactly what happened in that game.
And that's why you always play it out to the end, even if
100%.
it's boring for the stream or your opponent, like, oh my god, come on, it's over. Like, you still play to your outs because you never know. Even the greatest player of all time, 3-time world champion Ray Rizzo, thought it was over. So even the best player ever still didn't believe and was able to do it. It was funny, actually, if you watch that video, because at the time, Gio was very well known for his Bolivian Eevee YouTube series and playing Eevee at all the regionals and stuff. And you made the great call to adjust he believed in Dragonite. Now, were you sitting on that, or did that just come to you naturally?
Like, all of the stupid stuff I say, it pops into my head a millisecond before I actually say it. So
that was a great line.
He thanked me for it later, and someone actually told me, like, Gabby, you know, he's gonna clip that and use it in all his YouTube videos. And I was like, he can have it. after playing that out, he can have it.
He deserved, absolutely. He's like, I remember talking to him one year where he was like, the amount of times that they've had like family friends over the house and they've just watched the match from 2017, like, to everybody who will ever listen. Like, he's had to have watched that match 1,000 times in his in his life right now. And then of course they play the Dragonite comeback a gazillion times on the stream every regional. So but we can move on, because I'm asking this as a segue, because I'm a professional. All right. Gabby.
You are very professional, Joe Brown.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We have a lot of Discord questions for you. We let our Discord friends know, everyone in the OHKO Discord. It's going to be linked in our description below. Make sure you join us there if you want to get the inside scoop like this. We told them earlier today that Gabby would be joining us if they had any questions for her, and then we'll have a question of the week at the end of the podcast. But this first one, it's kind of on topic. It's from Flame G. I'm going to change it a little bit to make it more accurate to the topic, but Flame G says, we know they make videos to highlight huge championship moments. Are there any videos you wish you could make about like a random round 4 match that you thought was cool? I'll expand and add on to that question of, what if you could make a Pokemon Championship history video? You don't necessarily have to be the caster in the match. Just like, what's a championship history video that you would love to see get made?
So this actually answers both questions, but I guarantee you, if there's footage of this, it is buried in somewhere where I don't know where it is. So at the national championships in either 2011 or 2012, I want to say it was 2012. This was prior to any stream, but they used to have TVs on the side where you could actually go and watch the matches, kind of like they do still today. And Danny Zollner, who goes by TTS, if anybody old remembers him like I do, he had a Zebstrika team that was just the coolest thing ever. He had the Zebstrika that was 1 point faster than like the Cresselia on his team or something. Like, it's been years since I've thought about this, so apologies, I'm probably getting a lot of details wrong. But the way that he approached building that team, it was the first time that I had ever heard someone of actually using like speed stats to scout in between, like, you know, I know this Pokemon goes first, this Pokemon's 1 point slower, therefore this Pokemon will still go first, kind of thing. And that was back when it was all closed team sheet and stuff as well. So like, this was super important. And then the match came down to the Zebstrika and his Amoonguss versus 2 other Pokemon on the opposing side of the field. Or maybe it was something else with like Drain Punch or something. Yeah, it couldn't have been the Zebstrika at that point. So Drain Punch Pokemon and Amoonguss. His opponent double protects because there's burn damage going down on this attacking fighting type Pokemon, thinking that they would just knock out and, you know, they'd win the game. He side drain punches his Amoonguss, knocks it out, recovers enough health to survive the burn damage, and then takes a double KO the next turn.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he won the game. And this was just so crazy to me because I had never thought of the board in that way before. And this was before I
Right.
knew how the team was built and everything as well. So like he just kind of blew my mind with lateral thinking. And you rarely get to see those moments. I know that there have been a couple of them throughout the years, but Lord knows I couldn't quote them off the top of my head because my memory is absolute crap. But I would love to do a championship history video on something like that to just showcase, it's not just, the Pokemon in front of you. You also have your own board pieces that you can play around. And in situations like this, yes, you take your own knockout, but it allows you to then go and win the game.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, that not only was it a cool play in isolation, but it also increased your capacity as a player. This is now an option that you never thought of before, right? And it doesn't happen too often, but you do have historic moments of like think of that play, the side knockout, turn that into the side power up punch when your teams are going to double protect, right? With Mega Kangaskhan, you just power up punch your Amoonguss twice, you get 2 attack booster, the side Will-O-Wisp so that you can't get put to sleep, right? A lot of side Volt Switch, if you think your opponents are going to double protect, you can Volt Switch your teammates so you can still get the positioning there. And it always, what's funny about it is when it works on stream, it works and it's the coolest thing in the world. But you have to wonder how many times when there's 1,000 players in the regional, how many times we don't see it. Someone sitting there with their Switch and they knock out their own Amoonguss and it actually loses them the game because their opponent didn't double protect.
So, follow-up story.
Uh-oh.
For those of you who are just listening, I slowly raised my hand while Joe was talking there. In 2013 Portland regionals, or 2014 Portland regionals, I was playing Bravarius, Zach Drogenkamp, in a very important match. Like, I think it ended up determining who made cut at the end of the day. And he was running Trick Room. I had no Trick Room answer. Side paralyzed my own Pokemon so that I'd be slower under Trick Room. Fully parried 2 times, KO'd. So it works, it doesn't work. It would have been really cool if that was my out. And I remember him saying, like, yeah, I'm surprised you took that. And I was like, it was my out.
So you gotta go for it.
Yeah, you gotta go for it. So I can confirm that it both works and doesn't work based off personal experience.
Yeah, it's always funny. You always hear about the success stories, right? Never the plays like you had. That's so funny. You had just one in the chamber, ready to go. So I would imagine a lot of people have went for the fan. Oh, he's gonna predict my Ice Beam on his Landorus, so he's gonna swap out, and instead I'm gonna Draco Meteor the Latios switch in, and then like he just like doesn't switch. Now you're locked into Draco, and you're like, oh god, like I went for game on turn 1, and now it's just over.
Yeah, it do be like that sometimes.
All right, our next question in our Ask Gabby segment here on OHKO. It's questions from Hannah. Technically not in the phrase or in the shape of a question, but I'll let it slide. We'll phrase it there. So she wants to know, she would love to hear about creating the Chaos Cup teams. So can you tell our audience what Chaos Cup is and your part of the creation of the Chaos Cup?
I wish Chalky was home because this is really his wheelhouse. So I help with Chaos Cup. Chalky is the Chaos Cup mastermind, and Cheese is the master of chaos. So if you want to know how our household works, it's very dysfunctional. So for those of you who don't know, Chaos Cup is a side event at some regionals, some ICs, and some worlds, where you are given a team when you sit down to play round 1 of the event. And that's just the team that you're playing with. You don't get any instructions. You don't have to train any Pokemon. You really just show up with your Nintendo Switch, type in the download code on online, and then that's the team you play with. So for last year's NAIC and Worlds, Chalky and I worked on building, I think it was 16 teams total, but it ended up getting cut down to about 13. Of notable Pokemon trainers and just, teams based off of them. So we had people like Nimona, we had people like Gita, Cynthia, obviously, she's a very notable Pokemon trainer. But then we also had some really deep cuts like Mysterio from Pokemon Battle Revolution. We also had the final boss of the Pokemon trading card game,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had a couple people from Coliseum in there because that's my sort of deep cut. And then we had Sierra from Pokemon Go. She did not have a Slitherwing, so
not our Sierra.
not
Although
our
Sierra is if you put her hand like on a Canadian document, like you have to swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth. I think she will say that she thinks she is the Go Sierra because she was a content creator playing Pokemon Go, and then they make a girl in Go named Sierra. Like,
weirder things have happened. I will say that. I
believe it. I'm fully in on the conspiracy theory.
Oh, 100%. But so we came up with these trainers. We looked at the Pokemon they had associated with them throughout the games, throughout the animation, movies, whatever. And we basically started by picking 6 Pokemon that we thought were relatively decent in VGC. We played a lot of test games, and then we balanced it out so that they roughly had the same amount of wins against each other. Like, the goal is to build a perfect pod of 8 teams where anybody has a chance of winning against anybody else depending on how they get matched up, because otherwise, like, they've done Chaos Cups in the past where like the matchups are set, so like you'll have Groudon versus Kyogre, you'll have red versus blue, like, and while that's fun, still I think the real chaos of it is having that random matchup part of it thrown in as well, because it means that you really have time to learn your team and get comfortable with the strategies that we give you, but also you don't necessarily know what's going to come on the other side of the table. The process itself took about 3 months from start to finish. Chalky did a lot of testing with friends, with former Magmas, with locals even. And this year, he's working on another one. So you can look forward to that at Worlds.
Okay.
He was actually just testing it earlier. And it was really interesting because he was there with, our household has too many Nintendo Switches. So he had his Switch Lite and one of our OLED Switches. And he was like sitting there, like staring at the screen, like trying to figure out the optimal moves in each situation. And like, we were talking about maybe nerfing some stats to like make it so I think it was Iron Jugulus or Hydreigon wasn't as oppressive as it was being in that particular matchup. But yeah, it's just a lot of trial and error, kind of like how if you were building like a draft team or something,
right.
you pick the tools that you want to pick and then you just kind of make it work somehow. So
well, I love that it's like a thing now, because we always complain that there aren't enough fun VGC related side events at events. So like, I love that you and Chalky like take the effort, make more things for VG players instead of like just doing a pack battle in TCG. Nothing against that, but VG players want to play the video game, right? But I don't actually think of you when I think of the Chaos Cup. The type of tournament I think of associated with Miss Gabby Snyder is the Metronome Cups. So that's my favorite Gabby cup of tea right there. For anyone who doesn't know, let everyone know what you used to do with your Metronome battles on stream.
Yeah, and admittedly, I'm finally getting to the point mentally where I feel like I want to stream again. So these will probably be coming back, quote unquote, eventually. But you have 2 Clefairy, Bottle Cap, no EVs, Neutral Nature, Cute Charm female, so that Cute Charm doesn't activate, and then they only know Metronome. So like the goal is to make it so that they are as evenly matched as possible, except for the use of the move Metronome, and then just see what happens.
That's the real chaos.
It's the real chaos. Like, and that's actually something that started with Team Magma back in the day. I remember we decided to have a double battle Metronome tournament where it was 6 Clefairy, you could have held items, and I was up till 2 a.m. playing in the finals, only to lose to a fly explosion from my opponent, which I swear to God, if I didn't see it myself, I wouldn't believe that it actually happened.
Why is the game code? You're a smart person, Gabby. You know all this technology stuff. You could go in the code, you see the 1s and 0s. Is there a code in there that makes explosion happen more off Metronome?
No.
Because it always happens.
I think it's one of those things where you get enough monkeys hitting the typewriter in a room at once, and eventually you get Shakespeare. You get enough Clefairy using Metronome, you eventually get an explosion.
It's all because I remember you used to. I think it was like a redeem
Yep.
on your stream, right? That you could do a Clefairy battle or something
Yep.
like. So, oh my god, the hilarious! So, like, people get geomancy, and you get like other, explosion. Obviously, just the craziest things that this cute little Clefairy is putting the
Yeah.
finger up to do metronome, and precipice blades or something pops out.
Yeah. There was one side event at EUIC that was actually a metronome battle, and they asked me if I could send them a Clefairy for it, and I just was drowning in work at the time, so I didn't get to it. But one of my goals this year is I have a 3DS with a copy of Pokemon Crystal on it that I've been desperately trying to hatch a shiny on for over a year now. Still haven't gotten it, but once I hatch my shiny Girafarig, I'm gonna try and hatch a shiny Clefairy. I'm gonna ribbon quest it a bit and then use that for metronome battles and just make the rental code available to whoever wants it. So honestly, if you're a content creator and you're looking for like a redeem that's not necessarily like best of 3 me, because I know that takes a lot of mental toll, highly recommend it. It's just a lot of fun, a lot of chaos, and you can just laugh with your community, which is the most important part.
Yeah, I read next season if you're hosting any events with that downtime before Top Cut. I hope we can do some metronome battles.
It's gonna happen. It's definitely
so
gonna happen.
All right, our next question in our Ask Gabby section comes from Geb. Technically, their first question they lined out. They said, "What's the best region of VGC and why is it the Northeast?" So they lined that one out, but I still want to give them credit for that question. So that's not
fair.
the real question. The actual question is, when you team build, do you tend to build around a particular Pokemon or duo of Pokemon, or do you prefer to take other teams, excuse me, and change things around to better suit your playstyle, or do you build in some other manner entirely?
It honestly depends on what I'm trying to accomplish. When I was competing more, I would take a duo of Pokemon or a single Pokemon, and I'd be like, I want to make this work. Let me figure it out. I definitely take a lot of inspiration from other teams, though, and I think that the Polytoad Kingdra team that I did so well with in 2015, that was actually based off of a different Polytoad Kingdra team with Mega Gardevoir that was doing very well at the time. And I was just like, well, I don't like Mega Gardevoir. I like Mega Metagross, and I made it work. Now that I don't have as much time, and I think especially as commentators, we benefit from playing with different archetypes more so than just like really honing in on an individual archetype. Because we're not trying to get results necessarily, we're trying to just get knowledge and understand things. If I'm building a team, I will start with something that got like high at a Limitless tour or at a local, or maybe something I saw on a YouTube channel or a Twitch stream, and I'll just tweak it to fit my needs. Honestly, nowadays I don't even really tweak it as much because I'm not necessarily asking myself, like, how can I make this team work for me? I'm asking myself, why does this team work for this person? So I can talk about it from their perspective. But when I was building for locals around here, it was definitely more like, again, Regulation F. The Incineroar, Rillaboom, or Shifu Water team works really well. Let me just take this team and figure out how I can play with it well so I can go earn some points.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely the type of person, and people have learned from us building our OHKO teams in the Discord that I am the person that starts with a Pokemon and builds a whole team around it. Sure, I can look at other teams on Limitless and if they're using a similar Pokemon and like try to get inspiration or something, but I kind of don't like just taking someone else's team and then putting, Clefairy over Pelipper and acting like I made a team, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And
so I think, oh god, yeah.
I was just going to say, like, credit where credit's due. I think that one of the things that modern VGC does a lot better than what we did back in the day is say, like, I started with so-and-so's team and I made these changes and this is why I did that. I think you can see that a lot if you look at the Calyrex Shadow metagame developments throughout the Regulation G season. But at the end of the day as well, I think you also just have to optimize for how much time you have. Like, I have never been a team builder. I will be the first person to admit this. Like, a lot of times my team building is going to people like Chalky or my friends and being like, is this a dumb idea? And then they usually say, yes.
But you have to learn the dumb ideas to know the smart ones. People are skipping out. They're not falling down in their team building strategies. You know what I mean? You have to be able to. The only way to be able to get up is to fall at first.
You do, for sure. But I also want to validate anybody out there where it's like, I could either build a team or play. If you just want to play, that's okay. Just don't tell people you made the team.
Yeah, but you say you're not like a team builder, you go to others, but if my memory serves, Coach Gabby Snyder almost won the first Pokemon Scarlet and Violet tournament with our Armoroo's team that you and I built.
Oh my god, together. I forgot about that. Yeah, no, but dude.
And that's a scenario, right? We start with a Pokemon. You and I both loved Armoroo's, and you built around from there.
Yeah, but that also though was a lot of I do feel like I gave you a lot of stupid ideas in that conversation. Not gonna lie.
No, that team was cracked. But
that was also a lot of considering, because we weren't the one running it. It was Box, right?
Right.
Like, okay, well, this is how he plays TFT. This is how he approaches other games. How can we make Pokemon as similar to that as possible so that his brain just works? And fortunately, we got that right.
Dude, when you were on his stream teaching him rock beats flying and he didn't even know the type chart, I was just like, oh my god, it's so Jover. But then we were watching, you and I were chatting the whole stream that he made the finals. Like, I was sweating like it was like my own child was playing like a world championship event or whatever. Like, we were just so invested at that time. But I do think that team was actually cracked. Like, if Regulation A lasted for longer and maybe you and I got to play at a regional, I think we probably could have went somewhere far with that.
I actually played that same team in the Victory Road Tour. That was like a couple weeks afterwards, I want to say. And I did very well for what I was expecting. Again, I didn't put much time into it, and I was also babysitting Cheese because Chalky was gone that weekend. So I was playing this with my laptop or my iPad right here. I was standing with the controller like this, and I was kicking Cheese's ball around so he wouldn't chew the carpet or the walls or, whatever his chaos heart decided he wanted to do at that point in time. And I still went positive. So part of me wonders what would have happened if I actually played it, That was a fun team. We got to get this going again, clearly.
I know. We used to talk because our issue, if we just want to open, let's just lift the curtain for everybody listening here. Our issue is we do sometimes tunnel vision because we prefer specific strategies. Like you said, you like weather. I also like weather. You and I both are fond of trick room teams. And sometimes we tunnel vision down areas that we're comfortable with. And some of the Pokemon are just not up to snuff in that area. So when we're trying to build a trick room team, but there really aren't great trick room sweepers in Regulation B or something that we're trying to make work. You know what I mean? So we gotta expand our horizons, Gabby.
And I think that's why trying teams out just for the sake of trying it also helps. Because if I didn't do that, then I would have never discovered, I'm trying to think of an example, but I honestly, all the teams that I've been trying recently are the teams that won regionals. So I can't really say that I've bonded with any of them more than Calyrex Ice Rider. Because again, that's just where my brain is in this format. But I agree. All
right, we're gonna get afterwards. You can get back on the grind. We'll play,
of course.
Play some locals or something. We'll make a cool team. See what happens. All right.
Sounds good.
Our next question in our Ask Gabby segment. Hold on, I lost it. Okay, this is from Turkey Soup.
That's a good name.
That's a good name. Which starter Pokemon do you think would be the best at household tasks, cooking, cleaning, etc.? You can include evolution stage if you prefer.
Definitely not Rowlet, because Rowlet just sleeps all the time, and that's what I would want to do. So as a person who tries to take care of my household of one and a half, Cheese is the half. I like cooking. I hate cleaning. So I would want a starter Pokemon that would help with the cleaning aspect of it and preferably enjoy cleaning. And that brings me to two Pokemon, Squirtle because he's just a fun little turtle guy. I think he'd have a good time. And Quaxley, who, as those little animated shorts that they always play, is always trying to
Yes.
find some semblance of order in their life. So I would probably go with one of those two. Again, but this is optimized for cleaning because I like cooking and the other stuff.
Also, I mean, Cheese would just absolutely terrorize Quaxley every day. He'd get the frazzled hair, trying to keep up with Cheese all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I think that one cool. I think do we have 9 generations of starters now to think through? Like, my go-to is always, I'm thinking like a cleaning in a different sense, or like a Venusaur, or it's not Venusaur, a Bulbasaur or Ivysaur. Of like, they handle the garden, they plant all the stuff. They got Giga Drain to, like, you know, clear all the leaves out of the gutter. They could reach it with the Vine Whip and, you know, keep the exterior. So I think I have a nice little, what do you call it? It was a greenhouse or whatever in the backyard, and I'd let Ivysaur be in charge of it.
Oh, that would be nice, because you could grow like your own veggies and stuff too. That'd be fun.
Yeah, exactly. And then I will never evolve the Ivysaur, because I don't want to see the Venusaur frog animation from from Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Remember the frog hop?
Oh yeah.
It took 25 years for us to realize that Venusaur was a frog, because we never saw it hop like that before.
Some of us may still be in denial. Just saying.
Yeah. I wish I was in denial. But this next question, now, it's not really a question. It's just multiple Bidoof references.
Okay.
So let's just hit it on the Bidoof track. There's a gazillion Bidoofs in the back of your stream. You're crossing Bidoof zone. He's crossing. You got a little playmat as well. You are probably the most famous Bidoof person on the planet. I'd legitimately argue you are like, to Seijun to Pachirisu is Gabby to Bidoof, and I'm being 100% serious with how connected you are to the little guy. So tell us about how your love for Bidoof started.
Okay, so it is the most anticlimactic thing ever, but back when Diamond and Pearl were first being developed, you know how CoroCoro magazine would always come out with articles, and because Japan got everything first back then, that was like the only way to figure out where the new Pokemon game was coming. And there was a post of some CoroCoro scans one month that just had Bidoof right in the middle, like, check out this new Pokemon. And I saw it and I was like, oh, that's my new favorite Pokemon. It was literally just that. Like,
It's that simple.
I saw it and I was like, I like you. You like me. Let's be a happy family.
Let's be friends forever.
Yeah. And at the time, I didn't really think much would come of it, honestly. Like, it was one of those things where, like, the internet kind of memed on it a bit, you know, silly beaver Pokemon, whatever. But this was before, like, the Dorkly videos came out. I feel like that was really where Bidoof kind of became a meme initially. And at the time, I just, you know, I went to pre-order Heart Gold Soul Silver years later. I got my first Bidoof plush, and I was like, yeah, this is still my favorite Pokemon. And then people started recognizing me because of the Bidoof, and I was like, okay, I still like it. and then more merch came out, and it was just like a very organic evolution. And I think around the time when people started being like, oh, why is that your favorite Pokemon? I kind of just doubled down. And I've never recovered, honestly. Like, every Pokemon is somebody's favorite. And I feel like the evolution of Bidoof throughout the years is just proof that, you know, just don't give up. Maybe someday you too will spend far too much money on 2 stools to ship them from Japan because they're Bidoof.
I mean, I do agree with sentiment that every Pokemon is somebody's favorite, but, like, man, there's some Pokemon that when I'm playing through this game, I'm like, there's no shot this is somebody's favorite. You're what I mean? Like, there's no shot somebody pops off when they see, like, Go-Goat or, like, Trubbish or, like, what's the ugly fish from
Bruxish?
Bruxish. If you're telling me Bruxish is your favorite Pokemon, I gotta see the search history. You know what I mean? I gotta know what's going on in your brain.
It's fair, but at the same time, brains are weird. Like,
that's fair.
I don't understand how my brain works, real talk. So If
But you got
Brooks,
rewarded. You got the animated special.
Oh my god!
Now Bidoof is like a positive meme where before it was a negative meme. But Bidoof can take it out. Like he's in the photo with Arceus and all the other legendaries.
I don't know how, man. Like I feel like, admittedly, I think one of the biggest compliments in my casting career, to go back to a much earlier question, was that as soon as TPCI decided that Bidoof Day was going to be a thing, apparently I was the next comment, like, Gabby has to be involved. Like, that is my peak. I'm never going to get more accomplished than that. But at the same time, like, I didn't do anything. I just kept liking Bidoof, and he just kept winning.
I didn't do anything. I just kept staying, coming out on top for, no reason there. That's funny. Yeah. I mean, everybody loves Bidoof now, and you're the leader of the army, but
I do my best.
We have another Ask Gabby question. This one actually comes from Sierra Dawn herself.
Oh,
she wants to know, we were talking, I told her you'd be filling in for her, and she knows you love plushes.
I do.
And, we got the World Championships coming up this year. And she wants us to rank all of the plushes. I'm like, that's a lot of years of Pikachu Worlds plushes. So we're going to change the question around. What are your top 3 favorite Worlds plushes? And what is your just the number one least favorite? So you can start positive, start negative, wherever you're feeling. I'll give my answers too.
Okay. I will say Pikachu struggled in 2017 in Anaheim.
That's my answer too.
For those of you who don't know, this Pikachu is just holding a pot. Or no, a seed. It's holding
It's seed. Like a coconut or something. I have it on stream right now for anyone who's an audio listener. It's just a Pikachu with like a coconut. And I don't even know what this fruit is. Do you associate Anaheim with it? Like, I don't know.
I mean, admittedly, the things that I associate Anaheim with probably could not be a Pikachu plush unless there's like a multi-million-dollar marketing agreement between 2 major companies. But I like Pikachu with outfits. I like it when Pikachu has a little bit of style, and Anaheim Pikachu just needed a little bit of help.
Yeah, that's for sure, because he's naked. He's not wearing any clothes there.
Yeah.
So I will agree with you. I think the Anaheim one is not that first of all, our official statement is we love all of the Pikachu and Pokemon merchandise. We gotta cover ourselves here. That's our official statement. But on top of our official statement, we think Anaheim Pikachu kind of missed the boat a little bit there.
Just a little
so what's
bit.
your third favorite Pikachu World's plush of all time?
So I'm turning away because I actually have all my Pikachu on a shelf over there.
Yeah, I have mine behind me as well. Yeah.
And I have them in chronological order, but I'm trying to see where my eyes gravitate to help like inform my decisions. I really like Nashville Pikachu, and I think that one would be 3 for me. He's wearing a little cowboy outfit. He has a little banjo with the tassels and the bandana and everything.
Here it is.
He's a very talented boy. He's very talented.
Yeah, he's a big musician. He's a country music star. He got a lot going on. I think Nashville as a whole, the theming of that Worlds was like one of the best theming that we've ever had for a World Championship. Like even like the Mudbray on stage with his little bandana, and the Meloletta was a saloon singer.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like there was just so many awesome parts of the Nashville design, and I think to this day the Nashville Worlds poster is like the most expensive poster because of how awesome the Pikachu looked at. Like if you go on eBay, it's like crazy prices for that poster.
Yeah, it's pretty bad actually.
I put Nashville number 2.
Oh,
for me.
Okay.
My number 3, which it just fell. So I can't. Hold on. Wait.
Womp womp.
Okay, here's my number 3. The 2014 World's Pikachu from Washington D.C. Is Cheese back?
Yeah, Cheese is right here. Cheese, you want to say hello?
Cheese. It's my hero. For our audio listeners,
you can see him in the bottom corner.
I can see him a little bit. Yeah. That's Gabby's dog, Cheese, my hero. But anyway, so 2014. I look at this. This is when I started, right? I'm a Pachirisu truther, right? That's when I started watching the game. So like when I see this plush, I get nostalgic about Pokemon, about VGC, and like, this is the plush that got me into it because it's red, white, and blue, and he's a superhero, and it's our country's capital. Like, there's just so much perfect going on with the 2014 plush.
Yeah, 2014 is a good one. It's like number 4 on my list for the same reasons. I think for me, number 2 would actually be Yokohama Pikachu with the ramen bowl.
Ooh, let me get that.
Because this is not just the design. You know, I kind of like the Anaheim design. There is no costume here. I will admit, I'm going back on what I said a little bit, but the fact that this Pikachu has the ramen bowl, the fact that we were in Japan for the first time, and just all of the artwork around Yokohama's world in general was just so bright and colorful and vibrant. It's definitely a personal favorite of mine. So when I see the plush, I just think of that more so than just like looking at the Pikachu. If I had to give a design one for number 2, it'd probably be DC, because, you know, the little adventurer thing with the binoculars and everything. Very cute.
Yeah, I think it's tough for me with the Japan plush, is like, you know, if we're being consistent on Anaheim, it's just a naked Pikachu with a fruit. This is a naked Pikachu holding ramen. So like, I feel like I was a little let down with the first ever Japanese world Pikachu. Wish we could have got something else. I don't know what it would have been. But like, I just wish we had a little bit more for me. My honorable mention, because it doesn't count, I have in the back of my screen there, the Statue of Liberty Pikachu is definitely my favorite Pikachu, because that's the Liberty Garden Pikachu that we always had on all the streams.
Yeah.
And like, it kind of felt like, obviously we didn't make it, but it kind of felt like that was our region. We were being represented with the Pikachu plushes and stuff. So it's technically not a world's Pikachu, but that's for sure my favorite plush of any Pikachu. I think it's just so cool. Had the Statue of Liberty, everything. I will say my number 1. I think we might have the same number 1.
Is it that one? Yeah, it is.
It's in the background, in your background, baby. 2015 little George Washington looking U.S. Patriot Pikachu World's plush, the greatest World's plush of all time.
He has the mustache with the thunderbolts, which is super cute. Like, the whole outfit, A+, very in character. And to go to like the sentimental side of things as well, not only was this the year that I qualified, up until 2015, Chalky actually gave me the world's Pikachu every year for my birthday present. So this was like the one time where he's like, well, I guess I don't have to give you a Pikachu this year because you've earned it. And I was like, I have earned this Pikachu. Thank you. So yeah,
it's just it's so perfect because it's Boston, it's the independence, right? It's the, you know, he's Pikachu's throwing tea into the harbor and stuff. Like, that was my second Worlds. Obviously, first was 2014, and it just felt like, oh, I get it. Like, we're appreciating the culture, we're appreciating, you know, everything. And 2016 had San Francisco with like the train, the trolley thing that they're synonymous for. So like, it starts to build an appreciation of the culture of not just Pokemon, but excuse me, the area that we're in as well. So I'm hoping we'll see that continue in Hawaii, because I know they've revealed the Pikachu plush already with like the snorkel and the little like wetsuit and everything. But I'm hoping that, you know, Hawaii is such a place that's connected to nature, connected to the local people. I'm really hoping that they'll continue this trend of like celebrating the local culture, and hopefully Pikachu is a reflection of that. Do you think they'll have, because, you know, some years they've had like the world skateboards and like leather jackets, like they gotta have like a world's like a surf, you know, surfing. Oh my god, why am I blanking on the word? Like
a surfboard?
A surfboard. Thank you. They have to have it.
So I don't think they're going to do a surfboard, because I think that's going to be too hard to ship home. I think they're going to do a ukulele, and I am not emotionally prepared. A good ukulele costs like $800 to $1,000. I am not emotionally prepared for that. But I know that if they come out with a good ukulele as World's merchandise this year, and if I'm there, it's over, man. It's over.
You can't not get the World's ukulele. You know,
especially
what I mean?
Since like music is such a big part of my life, like having a Pokemon instrument. Yeah, no, it's over, man. It's over.
Oh, I didn't even think about that, and now I want it more than anything, more than the surfboard.
I we'll see. I also say this with hesitation because I was actually looking. So we're actually going to do part of our honeymoon in Hawaii before the World Championships. That's part of the reason why my PTO is a mess this year. But you can actually do like build a ukulele type things there, and that was how like I started thinking about it. And now that the idea is in my head, I've apparently said this to people multiple times. Like Rose called me out on this the other day. She's like, Gabby, you've talked about this like 5 times already. And I'm like, I know.
It's like the Jimmy Neutron meme.
Yeah.
Where it's like, Gabby, you've talked about a world's ukulele in class 5 weeks in a row. Yeah.
Exactly.
You're trying to will it into existence. I understand. You know what I mean? I said for a decade that we should have a Pokemon event in New Orleans, and if they finally got there.
I said for a decade Bidoof should be more than a meme, and we got there too. So
exactly. Now all we have to do is just every conversation you and I have, we have to reiterate that World should come back to Boston, because that's what everybody in the Northeast has said for the last like 7 years, and it hasn't happened yet. So until we will it into existence, we have to keep spreading our Northeast propaganda.
I've been manifesting this since 2022, Joe, and I will keep saying the next World Championships is in Boston until I'm proven right.
It's got to happen eventually, right? Like,
yes.
So even if we say it 15 years in a row, we will eventually be right that we go, God, I wish we go back to Boston. But that's neither here. That's another day. But we have one last question. This isn't just a Ask Gabby question. This is our question of the week. So we're going to be closing out the show after this one. Everyone in the Discord was super fired up about this question from Code Beast. And they ask, so with this being the last year with Terra, like the upcoming year, you know what I mean? The next year will be the final year of the 3-year cycle for Scarlet and Violet. And the last 2 gimmicks being non-held item based, do you think the next gimmick will follow the same trend, or do you want it to?
So I am a little bit ahead of the game in the sense that I think terrestrialization has been one of the best mechanics we've had in the game in a very long time. So I think that whatever comes next is going to unfortunately be held to an extremely high standard. But I'm saying this now before all the people come out like a couple of years from now and they're like, oh, I miss Terra. It's like, you didn't like Terra back then. I think that I would like to see it be held item based, if only because I think that's the only way that we can continue to have a balanced mechanic that I can perceive. Obviously I'm not really a game designer, so like I haven't really put a lot of thought into, well, like if I were the person, here's how I would do things. I remember that gems back in the day were really exciting. They were these items that basically gave you double stab for a single move, and then you consumed it. So Stellar Terra without changing your typing, I guess.
Right.
I'd love to see the return of gems. Like, I think that would be a fun way to sort of explore something that's not as power creep as terrestrialization or Dynamax was. But still having that like big impact shock value of, oh no, are they going to use their gem or not type thing. So
yeah, I'm definitely in the camp of I want it to be a held item. I mean, I do enjoy Terra. Like I think it's fun. I think it does help the game. I do think that the lack of held item has warped team building to the point that some of these teams wouldn't be able to operate the same way in prior generations. And of course, duh, it wouldn't. You have different Pokemon, different moves available, right? But like some patches are really able to be just completely like the flex tape on the boat full of water in the commercials, right? Where it just throws the flex tape on it and you patch up every hole on a team just because your Hisuian Arcanine can get out of its 4 times weakness to Urshifu on the other end, right? There's no shot that if we didn't have Terra, Hisuian Arcanine would not have won 6 regionals in a row, being 4 times weak to Surging Strike. So, I like the structure of held items. I loved Megas. That's my favorite gimmick they've ever done. I like Z-moves as well because it was a held item commitment and it was a one chance to, if they protect, you're going to do 25% damage. If they swap in a dark type onto your Psychinium Z, that's your one chance. Like I like the cost benefit and the restricting that held items give. I mean, we all know Dynamax. If Dynamax was a held item, I still think it would have been a problem, but it wouldn't have been as much of a problem because you can only choose just your Charizard could Dynamax, right?
Yeah.
Then that changes your mechanic there, or changes your team building. But I for sure want it to be. And who knows with Legend ZA or whatever? Maybe Gen 10 brings the Megas back. I don't know.
I would actually love to see the Megas come back. I would be curious if they would change how some things worked. Like I wonder if they would nerf Parental Bond. I wonder if they would I mean, I guess dynamic speed is like a thing nowadays, so that wouldn't be as weird. Yeah. I would be curious though to see how that would play out. And I have high hopes that even if we don't see it in VGC, I'm excited that the mechanics coming back at least for ZA.
Yeah, for sure. It's just I love Megas, the new designs. I'm sure we're gonna get some 1800s, Industrial Revolution, Mega Evolution of a Pokemon or something, right? Or I saw someone tweet about getting a Mega Archaladon that looks like the Eiffel Tower or something, right?
That'd be so cool. I also saw some theories that Mega Evolution is meant to be like the pinnacle of evolution. So given the past Paradox and future Paradox Pokemon and how they work into the whole evolutionary thing, could we see some Megas for some of the future Paradox Pokemon that were introduced or the past Paradox Pokemon that are kind of inspired by those designs, which would be kind of cool. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be pretty.
That'd be cool.
I'm trying to think of because we could get a Mega Mischievous or something, right? Because you have Fluttermanes in the past, and then it turns into Mischievous or Mismagius, and then the future, since we don't have an Iron Flutter, I don't know,
Iron Flutter,
a name, Iron whatever. There could be a Mega Mischievous or something. That would. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Oh, but when you get a Mega Amoonguss, and I'm kind of not down for that because Brute Bonnet.
But would you want to use your Mega Stone, your one Mega opportunity on your Amoonguss?
I mean, it's already busted with that, in its current state. Give it 100 more BST, I think it might be even better.
Yeah, but then you'd also have the other Pokemon to contend with, right? Mega Charizard would just look at it and laugh.
And it also can't just turn into a water type whenever it wants. Because I am very against people that there are some Terra truthers out there that have either maybe they've only played Gen 8 and 9 or they just love Gen 9 so much that they love that they think Terra should be an evergreen mechanic, and I am far in the other camp. I'm like, no, we don't need to fundamentally change every Pokemon's type for every game forever.
I wouldn't object to Terra coming back though. I think Dynamax coming back, I'd be a little bit really, guys, really. Z moves, I wouldn't object to Z moves coming back for another generation. I wouldn't object to terrestrialization coming back. Give people a break, sure, but it definitely is one of the more balanced ideas they've come up with.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that's all our questions. Gabby, you did a phenomenal job this week co-hosting OHKO. Thank you so much for filling in for Sierra. I know she appreciates it, and I'm sure our audience appreciates having you on this week too. So how can everybody find you online?
So I go by Gabby Snyder on the site formerly known as Twitter. So you can follow me there. I also go by Simply Gabby on Twitch, which, like I said, I'm finally getting back to the point where I want to stream again. So hopefully there will be some streams soon. You can also find all of the Cheese League local streams when those come back on my Twitch channel. So twitch.tv/simplygabby. And then I've been trying to do Instagram a bit more recently. So you can find me there at Simply Gabby Snyder, because why not both?
So everybody get out there and saddle up and go follow Gabby on Instagram. Give her those follows. Give her some likes while you're there as well. But that's going to do it for this week. Thank you so much, Gabby. We hope everybody enjoyed listening to OHKO. Next week, hopefully, we'll have a great show. That'll be my last show before I'm traveling for the most of the next month, doing some freelance work. So keep everybody updated once that happens. But for now, this is Joe Brown and Gabby Snyder signing off on OHKO. We'll see you next time.